Well, joining me live now after a tumultuous week, to say the least, is Nationals leader David Littleproud. David Littleproud, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Did you shout down the phone at Sussan Ley words to the effect of, "Sussan, you should resign," on Wednesday?
No, look, I'm not going to get into this delusional petty games. This is just nonsense. The reality is that we wanted to get to a position to keep the coalition together. We did nothing wrong. None of us did anything wrong, and we shouldn't have been in this position. That 3 of my colleagues were sacked, and in fact, I would have been too had I been given the opportunity in the House of Representatives, because I would have voted against a bill that I only saw in totality at 6:18 a.m. on the Tuesday morning. That's when it was completed.
Did you yell at Sussan Ley she should resign on Thursday before you announced the coalition split?
Andrew, this is nonsense. This is just.
Do you deny saying that?
Andrew, I'm not going to get into conversations one way or another. This is just nonsense. What we want to talk about, and what we've always talked about, is the unfortunate predicament we've got to, that we didn't need to get to. But when my colleagues are gone, we took a unified position to stand in unity with our colleagues who were sacked. There was a way out of this. The reality was it wasn't taken, and we found ourselves in this predicament. Private conversations, whatever.
Go on, sorry.
No, I'm not going to get into games about conversations of any nature, both private and ones where others, my colleagues, have been there. That's not what this needs to be discussed about, because he said, she said. That's just petty politics. The reality is what we want to do is focus on the reason where we got to and why we got here, and we'll do that in a constructive and open and transparent way, as we dealt with this situation all the way through.
You've fallen for Albanese's trap here, haven't you?
No, well, it wasn't a trap that we wanted to take. Just to understand, Andrew, we made it very clear from the start on Sunday that we were very happy with the migration part of the legislation, that we did have serious concerns about the hate speech elements of this, and they're the elements that we'd need to address. We worked hard from Monday afternoon on to try and give constructive feedback about how we could hopefully get to a position to support it. Everyone was up front, so much so that we had Michaela Cash and John O'Duniam and Andrew Wallace and Paul Scarr come to try and convince us about the elements, and in fact did a great job in getting some amendments to change the scope of the legislation, and we thank them for that. So we were very upfront. The fact that these shadow ministers were brought to our room continually, probably 3 or 4 times, but then to get a final bill on the Monday morning at 6:18 a.m, to then be asked to make a decision by lunchtime whether we could support it or not. Now, I wanted to get rid of Hizbut Tahrir and the neo-Nazis, but I wanted to make sure that I'd scrutinised a bill and that the proper processes were undertaken. There was no shadow cabinet on the final bill. There was no joint party room. There wasn't even a leadership meeting that would have come together. It was basically, it was there. And
all right, whose fault is it there was no joint party? Whose fault is it there's no joint party room? Is that because the Nationals couldn't come to a position, or that was Sussan Ley's call, or why was that?
Well, we've got every right, Andrew, as a national party to be able to explore and scrutinise legislation that has far-reaching impacts. I think that's what you send us down there to do, and that's what we did. We were getting, in fact, just to give you some scope, when the hate speech bill, was actually being introduced into the Parliament, we were being presented with some of the amendments as it was being introduced. And then the debate time on the bill was literally an hour or two. So this was a process that we were trying to scrutinise. We were doing our job as legislators. We had every right to do that.
You called for Parliament to come back in December. I mean, you got what you wished for eventually, and then you can't come to a conclusion on it. Well, does that make you feel a bit silly?
No, Andrew. What that shows is this was Anthony Albanese mishandling the process. The reality was we could have come back because, as I said to start with, Andrew, the Migration Act part of it, giving more power to the immigration minister, to cancel visas, to deport people. That was, in fact, part of their own special envoy into anti-Semitism that they'd been sitting on since June. We could have come back straight after the tragedy at Bondi. We could have passed that legislation and we could have started the parliamentary process for the hate speech elements that would have been able to explore, interrogate and scrutinise those elements to ensure, as Anne Termium, a constitutional expert, has made clear, that there are elements that have concerns. Well, why wouldn't you have undertaken a process that you could have started that parliamentary committee? You could have asked for submissions that weren't just for a day. I mean, this bill was scrutinised before Anthony Albanese capitulated on one part of it for 2 days. There were submissions still coming in as they'd made their decision. These are far-reaching laws that should have scrutiny. We could have started that before Christmas. So I don't take that premise, and I think that's sort of the political narrative that tries to run around. We did the right thing. There were elements of this of legislation we could have acted before Christmas to send a strong signal of leadership to the country that we're going to take this seriously and start the process to make sure we got the right laws moving forward to remove anti-Semitism and radical Islam teachings out of this country.
It's been put to me that you and your fellow shadow ministers agreed with the Sussan Ley position at Shadow Cabinet Monday night, that you were prepared to support the bill there, that you hardly spoke, and when you did speak at the end, you didn't indicate any opposition. Is that correct?
No, Andrew, again, I'm not going to get into these petty games. I was very clear about the National Party's position straight up. And again, outside of Shadow Cabinet, the next day made it very clear about the concerns that my room had. And so much so that those shadow ministers from the Liberal Party are in my party room, were given the opportunity to come to my party room on probably up to 4 occasions to explain and to convince my room. I don't think we could have been any more transparent about the legislation that was in front of us and the concerns we had.
Why did the shadow ministers
that's
quit
why I
then?
started.
Why did they offer to quit if you weren't going against the shadow cabinet position?
Well, out of respect, Andrew, I mean, I disagreed and made it very clear to Sussan Ley, I disagreed with her that there was any shadow cabinet solidarity being breached. I mean, I've never been in a shadow cabinet or a cabinet where you openly agreed to a bill that wasn't finalised until the Tuesday morning. You're talking about Sunday night, Andrew. So let's get the chronological chain of events here right before you start passing dispersions on the National Party and the courage of our conviction. The reality is we didn't have a bill in front of us on Sunday night. We had principles that we would agree to work with the government. The final bill was given to us at 6:18 a.m. on the Tuesday morning.
So did you call for a shadow cabinet then? Did you call for a shadow cabinet that day? Did you ask Sussan Ley for that? And if not, why not?
Well, Andrew, as I've just gone through the chain of events, we were still debating the bill that we received at 6:18 a.m. We started party room. The National Party was trying to get to a position on a bill they'd received that morning. So we made it very clear. In fact, we had those shadow ministers again called back to our room and were still explaining to us as the bill was being introduced, some of the amendments were put in place. So with all due respect, we were very upfront. There was no bill on the Sunday. The only time a bill was presented was on the Tuesday morning of something as far-reaching as this, Andrew. You know, I know there's a lot of blame that wants to be laid at the National Party's feet, but we were very transparent that that was the element of concern we had with the bill. We worked constructively with the shadows and got some amendments. But when you haven't seen a bill, how can you blindly say I agree to a bill you haven't even seen? That's not responsible.
People are saying Matt Canavan. People are saying Matt Canavan's running the show down there, not you. What do you say to that?
Again, Andrew, I mean, this is the puerile, petty, gossip that people like.
Is it true though?
What we did, Andrew, I'm not even going to dignify this nonsense. The reality is our room collectively got to position, and it'd be more instructive for the commentariat to understand the Nationals, to understand our commentary and our culture about how we operate. So the collective will of the room determines where we go, and then we draw on the collective wisdom, not individuals. And our room got to a position, Andrew, and you know all this other stuff. He said, she said.
But you're
doesn't
the leader.
Change the fact that
you're the leader.
Yeah,
Other Nationals leaders have worked to keep the coalition together. You don't seem to have an interest in it, keeping it together.
Again, Andrew, I think that's more your political comment than a question. And this is where the commentariat need to be very careful.
Well, you split twice.
About just for a lot.
You split from the Liberals
Andrew,
twice. I mean, it's self-evident. Are you putting your position and your job over keeping the coalition together, David Littleproud?
No, Andrew. I'm standing by the conviction of my party room that we work together to a position. Now, Sussan Ley, if you want to go back to the first time, decided to remove all coalition policies after election, something that's against the convention of the coalition. There were 4 policies that we could not accept, and I made it very clear that if she didn't accept it, that would cause a chain of events. She continued to say she didn't accept it, so we had to leave until they were prepared to accept them. I made it very clear to Sussan, personally, in words, but also in a letter that accompanied those 3 letters from those senators, to say that if you want to ignore the fact that this is extenuating circumstances, there's no proper process, and you sack these 3, then we are all out. I couldn't be more transparent. The decision both times lands squarely at the feet of the Liberal leader. They get to determine that. I respect that, Andrew.
You want her gone, don't you? You want Sussan Ley gone.
No, I don't, Andrew.
Oh, are you saying now that you can work with Sussan Ley?
No, Andrew, what I'm saying is, and this is, just be careful with this, you know, you've got a lot of anger towards us at the moment, but the reality is we've been transparent, and what we're doing is saying that there were principles that three of our people should not have been sacked, and I made it very clear that unless they were
Littleproud, I've no skin in this game. I've no skin in this game. I've no anger towards you. I'm just trying to get to the truth here about your views. And my belief, your view is you want a different Liberal leader. You made that clear in your press conference the other day, didn't you?
Made it very clear that while 3 of our shadow ministers were sacked, until they were reinstated, we couldn't continue on in the current arrangements. That was the will of the room and what I believed as well. They did nothing wrong. And in fact, Andrew, had that bill been returned back to the House of Representatives, all the ministry would have done the same thing. And in fact, the only reason we didn't vote...
I don't think you're telling the truth about Sussan Ley here. You want Sussan Ley to go. You told Sussan Ley to resign in that phone call, didn't you? Didn't you?
Andrew, I'm not going to get into your gossip. What I'm talking about is
you can deny
the reality is this, Andrew.
You can deny that you told Sussan Ley to resign. But you know
Andrew,
it's true.
I'm not going to dignify... Andrew, I'm not going to dignify and get into your gossip. You want to deal in gossip, I'm going to deal in fact.
It's not gossip. It's what you said to her, and you're not denying it, David Littleproud. You want her gone. Have you had discussions with... Have you or anyone on your behalf had discussions with Andrew Hastie or Angus Taylor about them becoming leader and the coalition being brought together?
This is not a matter for us. It's a matter for the Liberal Party, and we stay away from all that stuff. That's a matter for them to work through. The reality is this. We actually wanted to vote against the bill when it first went through the House of Representatives. And out of respect to Sussan, at her request, we went back to the party room to say we will abstain those that are in the ministry until our amendments could be put up in the Senate. If they weren't passed, then we would vote against the bill. And if it was sent back to the House of Representatives, then I was going to vote against it there because I couldn't get comfort in the time that I was provided to vote for a bill.
Why did you go into the Senate to watch the vote? Why did you go in? Were you making sure your shadow ministers voted against the Liberals?
No, Andrew, that was a speech that Bridget McKenzie gave, and because of the gravity, we'd made it very clear, very open to Sussan of the position that my party room took, that we couldn't support this bill, and I was there to support them. We understood that this was a big moment and they wanted support. As a leader, that's what you do, Andrew. This isn't about some sort of political manoeuvre or anything else. It's saying to the people that I respect, that have the courage of their conviction, to stand up in that moment, to say they can't support a bill because they don't have enough information, they're not prepared to do it. In fact, the amendment they put was to ask for more time for a committee, to be there with them. I would have thought that's what a good leader should do. This was a trying moment that we knew the gravity of, and we were trying to avert, and I needed to make sure they knew that they had my support. That's what good leadership is.
So no coalition now. Is it a fact that you as party leader retain your salary, but all the shadow ministers, national shadow ministers, lose theirs?
Well, and there's shadow ministry weightings on everyone's salary, so there's a pay cut for me as well. But we didn't do this for pay, Andrew, or privilege. We did this on principle. So it's not about money or privilege for us. It's about the fact that we're asked to go to Parliament and to vote on the values and principles and the direction of this country. And if you can't stand there and be prepared to take and sacrifice, if you don't agree with it, then, you know, we're to be condemned for that. I mean, really? We did what we believed in, and I would have thought that's what the Australian people sent us to do, whether you agree with us or not. I'm proud of our party room. This was a trying time for us, a predicament that we didn't need to be put in. But when 3 of our colleagues were sacked, and they didn't need to be, there was an out all the way through. They didn't need to be accepted. We could have just walked on and acknowledged the circumstances that we were faced with, but the way in which we dealt with this is something that, you know, is regrettable. But I'd rather stand there with conviction than to be able to say we're just there for pay. It's a terrible circumstance, one that we didn't want to make or enjoy. But what am I to do? I'd be a hypocrite if I stayed on as well, Andrew, because I was going to vote against the bill when it came back to the House. I'm comfortable in the decision I made.
Do you accept there is no way you can hit government without the coalition being together?
Well, we'd like to be in coalition, and that's the reality. We didn't take this just to blow it up as much of the commentary.
Well, how are you going to return to coalition? How are you going to return to coalition?
And we made it very clear, Andrew, that the 3 that were sacked, their jobs need to be reinstated. Sussan Ley refused it, and it didn't even need to be sacked.
So if she reinstates them tomorrow, so if she comes out tomorrow and says they're back in the shadow cabinet, let's go as normal, the coalition's back together.
I'll take that to the party room. That was a threshold question that was given to Sussan Ley, and she said that she could not do that. She was not going to accept the fact that these 3 should continue, and that was the position of the party room. If she couldn't accept their reinstatement, but the disappointing thing, it shouldn't have got to that. She didn't have to accept. But that's all it's going to take. This is an important point. Well, that's all it's going to take. Yeah, that's your view. That's the threshold question that our party room took. That's the threshold question that was given to Sussan. She wasn't prepared to accept it. We accepted that, so much so that I asked her to put it in writing so that my party room had full confirmation and transparency of where her position was. She made it very clear, and therefore, in solidarity, what else could we do? Where else do we go? I mean, we were all going to be in the same predicament because we were going to vote against the bill when it came back to the House, ironically on freedom of speech. So we made that decision, and basically we did that as a party room, and we stuck to that decision.
David Littleproud, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.